Got this rocking?
Ready.
Am I losing everything? It's a good thing I numbered my pages. That's all I'm saying. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Gahanna Lincoln High School and our Veterans Day ceremony. Can I get a woo? Let's begin, and this is going to be one beautiful day, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for coming. I am your host, Jennifer Kander, and I teach here at Gahanna Lincoln High School. I'm the World War II and U.S. history teacher. At this time, would you please rise for the posting of the colors presented by the American Legion 797 and God Bless America song by our beautiful Gahanna Lincoln Chorale.
Blackberry, oh, what goes?
The national anthem will be sung by Ella King. Come on up instead. We'd love to have you.
Tracy King.
Tracy King. Oh, say, can you see the dawn's early light? Oh, it's so brilliant at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars the perilous fight are the weapons we watch, reads the gallantly streaming. Who can tackle the first get through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, see, does that star-spangled banner wave o'er the red of
Thank you, Dale. Order, arms.
Now, our chorale.
Thank you, Dale. Malcolm, approach. Station. Pledge
America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my own sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home.
Back where we were.
Thank you, Color Guard. Thank you, Honor Guard. It is with great pleasure, and I thank our most amazing chorale for their performance of God Bless America. A member of our Color Guard will be honoring our fallen veterans by accompanying the flag throughout the ceremony. Student Council Lily Risa will be saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning. Please stay standing and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Please welcome Principal Jessica Williams.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Jessica Williams, and I am proud to serve as the principal of Gahanna Lincoln High School. Staff, students, honored guests, and most importantly, our distinguished veterans, it is with great pride and profound respect that I welcome you all to the Gahanna Lincoln High School Veterans Day ceremony. Today, we gather here to honor and express our heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who have served and continue to serve our great nation. I am humbled by the opportunity to stand before you this morning alongside our students to pay tribute to the sacrifice and dedication of our veterans. Their unwavering commitment to defending our freedom and upholding the values we hold so dear is nothing short of extraordinary. Veterans Day is a time to reflect on the sacrifices made by these individuals, to acknowledge the hardships they have endured, and to show our unwavering support and appreciation for their service. We are honored to have some of these remarkable heroes here with us today. To our students, I encourage you to take this moment to learn from the experiences of our veterans, to understand the significance of their service, and to carry forward the lessons of courage, resilience, and commitment they have demonstrated. Let their stories inspire you to be better citizens and stewards of the freedom they have helped us to secure. Today's ceremony is a reminder that freedom is not free. It comes with a cost. It is also a testament to the enduring spirit of our nation and the unbreakable bond that exists between those who have worn the uniform and those who continue to support them. Once again, on behalf of our entire school community, I extend a warm welcome and deepest gratitude to our veterans. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and for being the living embodiment of the values that make our nation great. May this ceremony be a small token of our appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, let us come together today to honor, remember, and celebrate our veterans. Thank you for joining us today for this meaningful tribute. At this time, I would like to welcome our superintendent, Dr. Tracy Deagle, to the podium.
Good morning. I too would like to echo the most sincere welcome to our community. We are so proud of our veterans and all of you who have served our wonderful nation. Thank you also to our students and our staff who continue to show a commitment to honoring our veterans each year. Ceremonies such as these serve as a reminder that our neighbors, our friends, graduates, and loved ones are sacrificing in foreign lands, even as we're speaking right now. For those soldiers we know and those we don't know, this ceremony is just a small token of our appreciation and a time for reflection. Last year I spoke about sacrifice, the bravery of our veterans and their willingness to leave their loved ones, put their own futures on hold, and lay down their very own lives to protect our great nation and our freedom. Their sacrifices should never, ever go unnoticed, and I will always be grateful. Today, I would like to talk about another important aspect of our American veteran, their willingness to serve a cause that is greater than themselves. The concept of focusing on a team rather than an individual is not new to our veterans or our current service members. To recognize that there is an opportunity to look beyond our own life's routines and our own priorities and to answer a call to serve is absolutely heroic, and it is selfless. Did you know, students, that less than 1% of our nation is currently wearing a uniform for one of our great military branches? Less than 1%. And when they do wear that uniform, they understand that one person can make a difference to a team and that their team comes first. The military is full of these stories of team before an individual. Examples include missing a beloved grandmother's funeral when deployed in Korea because his team needed him. A medic who was killed in enemy fire rushing to carry fallen brothers and sisters from a vehicle because no American should be left on enemy soil. And if that level of bravery, service, and selflessness is not enough, many return from service and continue to dedicate their lives to the health, safety, and education of our community through their public service. If you are currently a veteran in public service, would you raise your hand? Thank you. This selfless drive to improve the life of others inspires me personally and professionally. And now more than ever, we rely on these selfless individuals who choose to push beyond their boundaries of their own lives and put their time and energy into an endeavor where every mission's purpose is to strengthen our country as a whole and make our world a better place for us. The names on the monuments surrounding us represent our students, those who have left our school for a greater purpose, and they have not returned. As a veteran who is familiar to many of us in Gahanna recently said to me, quote, "Some say the ultimate sacrifice is for love of a country or love of freedom. But when the bullets, bombs, and blood come, it is not for any of that, but for the love of the person next to you." Team over self. In each veteran, I see strength and I see dedication to the American people. So to each of our veterans here today and to everyone serving our nation currently, thank you for your service.
Good morning again. I am a child of a World War II veteran. My father, Philip Martin, was a Marine Corps PF First Class. My Uncle Bud was D-Day Plus 26. And my Uncle Jim also served in World War II and was captured and taken as a prisoner of war. He got out though. He snuck out. He outsmarted the Germans. But I'd like to say good morning, and I am sincerely, and to some of you who I know personally, am grateful that you are here. Your service and your sacrifice, I want to thank you. I want to thank you, and I want to thank your family. Words cannot truly express our gratitude we hold in our hearts for your service to this great country. Thank you for coming. Thank you to our veterans on Veterans Day. I would like to begin by first asking all Gahanna Lincoln veterans please stand. What class, sir?
1988.
1988. What class?
1988.
What class? Ladies and gentlemen, please give them an applause. Thank you. In addition, I would like to ask at this moment, and please stay standing, all veterans, so we can honor you all. At this time, I would like to ask the family of the fallen veterans who are memorialized on this hallowed site to please stand. And now, all the families of our veterans, please stand so we can thank you for your service. The family members, please stand. I would like to, at this moment, introduce our Student Council President, Dylan Raymond. Dylan?
On behalf of the students, faculty, and staff at Gahanna Lincoln High School, I would like to welcome you to this year's GLHS Veterans Day service. My name is Dylan Raymond, and I am the Student Council President. It is my honor to speak here at this ceremony. We are gathered at the GLHS Veterans Day Memorial, which was dedicated 17 years ago to preserve the memory of those who attended our high school and lost their lives in military service for our country. It is also intended for all of our students who have served in uniform. We are reminded in this place that freedom is not free and that honor and sacrifice are important virtues to be attained by all students. In the fall of 2005, students and staff members organized the To Serve and to Honor project to examine the effects of war on our community. One of the results of this project is the memorial where we are gathered today. Through the efforts of donors in the Gahanna community and the wider business community, construction was completed in time for the Veterans Day service in 2006. Today, as we honor all veterans who have served and those who have given the fullest measure of service, we also dedicate ourselves to help serve our community and country as best we are able. Specifically, I would like to recognize Major Rick Richkowski. Rick Richkowski was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1996. His family moved to Indianapolis in 1973, then to Gahanna in 1985. He played football and baseball at Gahanna before graduating in 1988. Rick would say his teachers and coaches from Gahanna helped build his foundation and approach on life throughout his time in college and military. He graduated from the United States Military Academy, West Point, New York, in 1992 and was commissioned as an armor and cavalry officer. He was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado, and Fort Knox, Kentucky, in the United States. He also taught in the Systems Engineering Department at West Point. He was deployed to the Republic of Korea and Kuwait as a cavalry troop commander. In 2003, he was deployed on 5-day notice at the beginning of Operations Iraqi Freedom, spending time in Kuwait and Iraq. Rick says being a part of one of the largest military operations of modern time, and from his multiple deployments and teachings, taught him to work hard and face obstacles. He left the Army in 2004 and has been running manufacturing operations throughout Ohio since then. Rick is the Vice President in Operations and a supply chain executive for the company Aero True Line. 3 words that Rick and his wife, Heather, would describe him as is family, service, and determination. He came back to GLHS in 2005 to gain his induction into the Hall of Fame. He and his wife have 6 children and 6 grandchildren. I am greatly honored to introduce our keynote speaker for today's ceremony, Major Rick Wichkowski.
Good morning. Great job, Dylan. And thank you very much to the leadership of Gahanna, the school district, and the high school, and as well as everyone who's been a part of putting on this great event. It is an honor to be here, and I do want to recognize my wife, my daughter, my 3 grandkids who came down here, and the guy in the matching hat over there, Sergeant First Class Gerald Woods, who is one of the best Abrams tankers you will ever find. He and I served together in Korea back in '97 and '98. So some of you may be familiar with this cowboy-looking hat that I'm wearing today. Little Mo here, my 3-year-old grandson, he hadn't seen me wear it before last night, and he asked, "What's that?" And I explained to him that it's the United States Cavalry Stetson. This is important to our discussion today because actually most military operations have clearly defined objectives and clearly defined boundaries. Most cavalry operations have loosely defined objectives with flexible boundaries, and that's likely how this is going to go this morning. We also have a great mission. Our mission in the cavalry is to be out front, and when needed, close with and destroy the enemy with fire, maneuver, and shock effect. To further reinforce this point, as a brand new second lieutenant at Fort Carson in 1993, the gun tube name on my tank was Chaos. My crew and I lived up to that, and my family would probably argue that not much has changed. However, the general objective of today's discussion is about service. Those who have served and those who are serving today and those who will serve in the future. But first I want to say it's great to be back home. I lived here in Gahanna from 1985 to 1988, and apparently some things don't change much. We have high mortgage rates. High school kids are wearing AC/DC, Def Leppard, and Aerosmith t-shirts. We had them first. Russia is a formidable foe on the world stage. GLTV is here. I was in the first class. Our equipment wasn't as good as what they have there. Coach Shade was in the dugout for the baseball team, and the Gahanna football team was undefeated and in the playoffs. It was an incredibly impactful 3 years that I spent here. Formed lifetime friendships. Some of you may remember Bill Dressback, our quarterback back then, who played professional baseball for the Reds and was a state champion baseball coach down at Lakota West. I'm fortunate to be able to talk to Bill every couple weeks. Eric Bruno, one of our baseball players from the class of 1987, we remain in contact. And like I'm sure you do now, we had great faculty and teachers and administrators. It was great to see Mr. Ford here this morning. He was already in my notes. So Mr. Ford, it's great to see you. He was our principal. Folks like Mr. Howard, Mr. Woodman, who recently passed, teachers like Mrs. Coney, Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Reed, coaches on the offensive line like Coach Morrison, Coach McKillop, and Coach Masarasa on the defense, and a teacher, coach, and lifetime mentor of mine, Mr. and Coach Phil Koppel. Most importantly, the geography of Gahanna actually helped create my opportunity to serve. Because what happened, well, we'll come back to that. Thank you for your service. As veterans, we hear that often, and it's appreciated, but often we don't know how to respond to that. And so first I want to talk about some folks who have served from Gahanna. I want to start with Brigadier General Jim Abraham. There's a plaque with his name and his accomplishments in City Hall. Many of you may not know, he was in England prior to D-Day. He was supposed to go in on D-Day with his unit. He broke his nose at a softball game. He couldn't go in with his unit on the first day. and his unit suffered tremendous losses. He went in after that, and he fought across France. But because of just circumstance, he went on to be president of the Gahanna Civic Center. He oversaw the construction of the old municipal buildings. He served on the planning commission and worked as the Gahanna's director of public service. He went on, he was a retired brigadier general, inducted into the Ohio National Guard Hall of Fame and the Ohio Veterans Hall of Fame. And as I said, now there is a plaque for him. He was on the committee in Congressman John Kasich's office that interviewed me when I was a candidate to go to West Point. I didn't know him before that, but he reached out to me after. And for several months in my senior year, I got to hear firsthand experiences from this World War II veteran, brigadier general, and business leader. And just unbelievable experience for a high school senior that I didn't appreciate at the time. Other Gahanna graduates from my time. Tracy King. She's the reason I'm here today, because she pass blocked on the opportunity to speak today at our 35th reunion and gave them my number. So thank you, Tracy, and thank you for your service. Jared Harper was a teammate of mine on the 1987 undefeated Gahanna football team. Jared is an Army colonel today at the Army War College where he teaches. He is an expert on strategic intelligence, and earlier this year wrote his first book. And you're going to hear about many other Gahanna graduates who did make the ultimate sacrifice from World War II through the global war on terrorism. Why do we serve? For a lot of reasons. My grandfather was drafted and served stateside in World War II. My father, after he said he enjoyed his first year of college maybe a little too much, he joined the Air Force, where he was a military policeman and served in multiple sites across the U.S. and Puerto Rico. I ended up serving because geographically, Gahanna was close enough for us to go visit family in New York Thanksgiving of my junior year. I was familiar with the service of my father, my grandfather, and my uncles. I'd watched the Army-Navy game. I enjoyed history. I saw that, Tracy. Tracy's the Navy vet. But I hadn't considered service seriously. My aunt and uncle lived about 20 minutes from West Point, 50 miles north of New York City. And Thanksgiving morning, we were waiting for the family to drive up from New Jersey. My uncle said, "Hey, let's go look at West Point." For those of you who have not been there, the history, you can see it, you can smell it, you can feel it, you can almost taste it. And I stood there on a day much like this. It was gray. For those who are familiar with West Point, it's gray a lot. But it was a gray day. There weren't any cadets around because they were going to they were home for Thanksgiving. But you could feel the history. And it started me on the path of exploring what would it take to be part of the Long Gray Line. So, what does it mean to serve? It starts with the oath of office. And a very familiar part of that is we swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. So, let's go back to thank you for your service. And how do you respond to that? I was watching a program. They were talking to General David Petraeus. And they said, "Thank you for your service to General Petraeus." And he responded, "I appreciate it, but service is a privilege." And I stopped what I was doing. He nailed it. Service is a privilege. It's a privilege that comes with incredible risk, frustration, and gifts. Risks. We're going to talk about the folks who took the ultimate risk. I was fortunate, as I was telling Sergeant Woods, I was 5 miles from the DMZ in Kuwait, where we could hear the propaganda from their speakers. I was deployed to Kuwait in that was in Korea. I was deployed to Kuwait in 1995. We were about 10 miles from the border when Saddam Hussein was rattling his saber back then. And then, as Dylan mentioned in the introduction, in 2003, I thought I was completing my Army farewell tour, teaching ROTC cadets at Kent State and Youngstown State up in Northeast Ohio, when my boss, the professor of military science, Lieutenant Colonel, came in and he said, "You're not going to believe this." And he gave me orders to report to Fort Bliss 5 days later with follow-on to Kuwait and Iraq as a casualty replacement officer, is what it said. Fortunately, our casualties did not meet the worst case scenario. But I went from teaching cadets how to do 12-man squad level op orders to writing and participating in the planning on the orders for the movement up in the capture of Baghdad in a week. And the military creates those opportunities for you. My brother and I, so my brother Dave, he went to Middle School West before my family moved after I graduated. He ended up going to West Point as well. He's part of the class of 96 up there. Retired after 24 years of service as a lieutenant colonel. But he and I were over there at the same time. He was a cavalry troop commander with the 3rd Armored Cav. So we were over there at the same time, and I didn't understand until years later the toll that had on my parents. It gives us frustrations. Things will not always go how you want them to go, right, Woody? But it creates opportunities. Many of those are blessings in disguise. The moves that I didn't want to make in the Army, they brought me back to Ohio and created and set the stage for the foundation in the next part of my life that I wouldn't trade for anything. It will teach you to increase your resilience and improve your ability to do hard things. It gives us gifts. And really the gifts are the people and the relationships. We talk about the U.S. Army and the fighting force it is, the U.S. military and the fighting force it is. But it is made up of the people, just like these 2 NCOs in uniform here. And it's that combination and collective chemistry of those people that really create the success of the U.S. military and creates the lifelong bonds. So some of the gifts and relationships that the time in the military has given me. The last man out of Afghanistan, the famous green picture of the soldier leaving, that's Lieutenant General Chris Donahue, who's currently the 18th Airborne Corps Commander. He was a company mate of mine at West Point. The 2nd Infantry Division Commander over in Korea right now is a very tall gentleman named Hank Taylor, who has been on various military briefings. Hank, I would trust with any member of my family. Same thing with Chris. 5 of the 13 academic department heads at West Point are classmates of mine. Several of them very close friends. But my time at Kent State, David Palka, who is a major in the Marine Corps right now, he was selected as the best company grade officer in the Marine Corps a couple years ago. Colonel Todd Tompkins, who's from the Columbus area, graduated from Kent State. He is a battalion commander in the Special Forces group right now. George Kloppenberg, a student of mine at West Point, he commanded the only main battle tank factory in North America, and he gave me a chance to ride on a tank after 20 years. My wife Heather and I know another veteran who is the modern day Steven Seagal in Under Siege. That's a story we can talk about afterwards. But I really want to talk about the incredible NCO soldiers and NCOs that are the heart and core of the U.S. military, and they are truly our enabler, and they are the difference in why we will always beat our adversaries. Sergeant Woods and I served with with a first sergeant named Pablo Hernandez, my first platoon sergeant Tom Byer, a guy from Indiana named Joe Hurst, a tanker named Gary Streisky who allowed Heather and I to get on ESPN because his son's a Sports Center anchor now. Ricky Linton, James Geis. These are NCOs that I worked with and are responsible for the success I had in the military. And as I said, they are our secret weapon and our combat multiplier. The last individual person I want to talk about is Guy Baratieri. Guy Baratieri was a state champion at Cincinnati Purcell Marion in 1986. Like me, he was a 1988 high school grad, a West Point classmate of mine who finished last in our class at West Point. That's a big deal. It's kind of like the last guy at medical school at Harvard. It was the difference between those who made it. We started with 1350 the summer of 1988. We graduated 923 in the spring of 1992, and Guy was last. The GOAT, we call him the GOAT at West Point when you finish last, and they get a silver dollar from every classmate. So Guy left with a pillowcase full of silver dollars. He served in the military for a number of years. He left, but then after 9/11, he was called back to service again. And in 2006, he paid the ultimate sacrifice, our only classmate to lose their life in the global war on terrorism. Well, in September, we were down in Cincinnati because his high school recognized, Cincinnati Purcell Marion recognized what he had done, and they dedicated their football field in his name. The irony, and Tracy, you will appreciate this, is that the football stadium is named for a Navy veteran, a Naval Academy veteran, a guy named Roger Staubach. So down there at Cincinnati Purcell Marion, you have a Naval Academy grad, the stadium's named for, West Point grad, the field's named for. I think that's called combined arms. Who's going to serve in the future? As was mentioned earlier, only 4% of the U.S. population today are active military. And right now, just 7% have served in the military. The percentage of Americans serving in the military, the first number I had was 2.1% in 1954. When I was born, which was 1969, I appreciate the 1996 though, that goes with the lies I tell the grandkids here, was 1.7%. When I graduated, it was 0.8%, and in 2005, which is when I'm assuming most of the Gahanna class of 2024 was born, was about 0.5%. But 2023 marks the 50th anniversary of our all-volunteer force, which also separates us from our adversaries. Nearly all of our adversaries have compulsory military service. Their soldiers are there because they have to, not because they want to. We have a small percentage who will serve going forward, but they'll be smart, they'll be agile, talented, and have the best technologies and the greatest NCO Corps the world has ever seen. Why will they have to serve? That brings us back to Veterans Day and the history of Veterans Day. It was started to commemorate the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month and the end of the Great War. It was called Armistice Day. It was named as a national holiday in 1938, commemorating the end of World War I. But after World War II and the Korean War, it was renamed Veterans Day. I guess it wasn't the war to end all wars after all. We know what's happened since and what's happening today throughout the world. We have two carrier groups in the Mediterranean. The son of RXO from Korea is a lieutenant in Poland right now in an armor unit, 1st Armor Division, whose commander happens to be a classmate of mine as well. Yesterday I was at my granddaughter Kaya's school for their Veterans Day. Kaya and Mac are 3rd and 2nd graders there. And one of the songs they sang was Your Grand Old Flag. And afterwards I told Kaya that when I was in preschool we did a ceremony just like that, and we sang that. And she said that's her favorite song. And so, the words we're all familiar with. You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you wave. We all want that. However, we're also quite certain that there is and always has been evil out there. So unfortunately, as a nation, we must maintain our readiness. We must train and prepare our all-volunteer force. And we must be thankful that there are and will continue to be young men and women willing to defend our country, our Constitution and way of life through resilience and not shying away from doing hard things. There'll be a special bunch ready to take on the mission of those that have worn the cavalry Stetson and are willing to take on that mission. They're going to be using tools and weapons that Woody and I use, but they'll also have much more technologically advanced skills and tools, like Ukrainian soldiers who are wearing virtual reality helmets to guide drones and other autonomous devices to gather intel and engage targets. So all this time we've been yelling at them about playing video games. Those are actually the tools of the future that are going to help defend our country. I want to end with a poem some of you may be familiar with. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to demonstrate. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag. That was written by a man named Charles Province in 1970. Pretty tumultuous times. We're probably in pretty tumultuous times today, too. Thank you very much for the opportunity to return home to Gahanna and represent the lineage of the Gahanna veterans before me. Beat up Arlington. God bless our veterans and our family and their families, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
See, some things never change between Gahanna and Upper Arlington, right? And as an alumni, I can say that. At this moment, thank you, Major. At this time, would you please rise for the laying of the wreath? We have U.S. Army Sergeant Derek Payton and Staff Sergeant Trevor Meade. You may be seated. Next, I'd like to introduce the benediction that will be led by lead pastor Doug Warburton from Peace Lutheran Church.
Let's pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we give you thanks for the men and women who have served and defended our country, and the values of freedom and justice we hold so dear. Help us to be mindful of the sacrifices they made and the hardships endured by their family and friends, so that we may never take for granted the privileges that they have offered for us. Hear us, we pray, Almighty and ever-living God. Amen.
We will have the honoring of the memorial. Student Council President Dylan Raymond.
John H. Zeck, 2nd Lieutenant, United States Army Air Force, class of 1935.
John L. Mauger, Private U.S. Army, class of 1932.
Charles R. Evans, Sergeant U.S. Army Air Corps, class of 1944.
Aaron E. Hall, Private U.S. Army, class of 1943.
Paul C. McGlinchey, Private U.S. Army, class of 1933.
Robert W. Phillips, 2nd Lieutenant U.S. Army, attended Lincoln High School from 1932 to 1934.
Kermit H. Newland, Private U.S. Army, class of 1933.
William H. McCann, Private U.S. Army Air Corps, attended Lincoln High School, 1939 to 41.
Robert E. Remley, U.S. Merchant Marine, class of 1942.
Neil H. Dial, 2nd Lieutenant, U.S. Air Force, class of 1940.
Benjamin F. Dunkel, Private U.S. Army, class of 1947.
Russell B. Luker, Staff Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps, class of 1951.
Stephen P. Blossom, Sergeant U.S. Army, class of 1961.
Gus W. Johnson, Jr., Sergeant U.S. Army, class of 1965.
Michael D. Turner, Lance Corporal U.S. Marine Corps, attended Lincoln High School 1966 to 1967.
John H. Houston, Captain U.S. Marine Corps, class of 1969.
Derek A. Clark, Sergeant, First Class, U.S. Army, class of 1972.
Samuel A. Mullen, Private U.S. Army, class of 1991.
Nicholas E. Messmer, Private U.S. Army.
Ladies and gentlemen and students, would you please rise for the presentation by the VFW 4719 and American Legion 797 for the retrieval of the colors. We're going to have taps by Bryce O'Rourke and Addie McClouster. Please stay standing for the retrieving of the colors.
Flag bearer, retrieve the colors. Rifleman, right face, right face. Flag bearer, to the front. Detail, forward, march.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Have a great day.
Well done. Yes, great job. And I'm surprised you all took it. Dude, I was shaking.